Hello and welcome to the Caregivers Stories podcast, where we discuss all types of dementia and hopefully share some caregiver stories along the way. My name is Kimberly Scott, and I'm a part-time caregiver to my mother, who at age 65 was diagnosed with early onset dementia. And in 2019, I started the Caregivers Stories podcast to give caregivers a place to tell their stories when they're ready, continue the education for those who don't know about dementia and what to do when their loved one is diagnosed. But most importantly, I want to get people talking and having a tough conversation about the what if your loved one is diagnosed, then what? What's the plan? I wish my mom and I had that tough conversation before she was diagnosed. If you want to share your story or your knowledge about dementia on this podcast, please go to thatkimberly.com to sign up to be interviewed. And while you're there, you can pick which platform you prefer to listen to the podcast on, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and now Amazon Alexa. So now that that's out of the way, I'd love to welcome my guest today, Marianne Sciucco. Hi, Marianne.
Hey, Kimberly, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story.
Oh, I'm glad to do it. I have a lot to talk about.
Oh,
Did
awesome.
you know that today is the longest day? It's the summer solstice.
No, really?
It's the day of the year.
Uh-huh.
And on this day, this is the day that the Alzheimer's Association puts up a big fundraising effort to fight Alzheimer's and dementia.
Awesome.
So there's a lot going on today.
Awesome. Well, tell the listeners a little bit about your background and who you are and what led you to do the work that you do today.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm a registered nurse.
Okay.
But more importantly, I'm a writer. I've always wanted to be a writer since I was a child, and I went to college and studied English and creative writing and tried to get a job as a journalist, and that didn't work out. That was back in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
And so I decided, since I wanted to be in a career where I was helping people, that I would go into nursing. At the time, there was a nursing crisis, shortage of nurses, and although I had no science background, I thought, well, maybe I could make this work. And the very first job I had was in a long-term care facility, and I worked in a dementia unit.
Wow.
And I loved it.
Uh-huh.
I also had two aunts at the time who had Alzheimer's disease, and one of them I was very close to, so that was heartbreaking to witness that. And I continued my nursing career in the hospital and became a case manager. And it was during that one day at work in that job, I met the couple that would become the characters in my first novel, Blue Hydrangeas, an Alzheimer's love story.
Aww.
And they simply captivated me, and I couldn't stop thinking about them. And I created a story, which is set on Cape Cod, about this couple who are the owners of a bed and breakfast, and they're grappling with her Alzheimer's disease. And that started to morph into my current project, which is Alzauthors, a global community of writers who are writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from their personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Which is a great organization, great website that I wish I would have found 7 years ago when my mom was diagnosed. It's something that's close to my heart. I'm still figuring it out, but even after this time, I get people asking me all the time about how and what. I get people on LinkedIn messaging me saying that somebody that's close to them was just diagnosed with some form of dementia. And I know that there is a caregiver's crisis. We're living longer, and so you're being able to publish information the way you all are doing and coming together to promote it is awesome.
Thank you so much. We work really hard at it. We're all former caregivers. We've been there. We walked the walk. Shortly after my book was published, my stepfather was diagnosed with dementia. So I suddenly found myself living my own story. And I was responsible for him. He had signed me to be his healthcare proxy and power of attorney. So I was responsible for him legally, medically, and financially. And at the same time, my mother was dealing with her own health problems and her decline. And I was also responsible for her. But I lived 4 hours away, so I was more of a long-distance caregiver. I was involved every day with what was going on in her house and what was going on with him, because he unfortunately was placed in a nursing facility very quickly upon diagnosis. And my mother had her niece living with her as her full-time living caregiver, but I was involved from 4 hours away, and every month I would go there and stay for a few days to help out and manage everything and keep things running smoothly. And that went on for a couple of years until my mom passed away last August. So
I'm sorry.
It was thank you. It was a very intense experience, and it's very difficult, especially when you are trying to manage two people at the same time.
Yeah, and your own life. I like to say.
Yeah, my own life, my own issues, my job and family. So, and the miles, it was a 4 to 5 hour drive. So it's not really that bad, but I would prefer it to have been around the corner.
Yeah, but it's better that you went to them instead of them coming to you, because I originally thought I would move my mom to me, and the doctor said absolutely not, don't do that. And she has a network of friends, and she's physically very healthy, so the medicine and just physical activity has really kept her stable, even though things change all the time. And I talk to her every morning. Thanks to technology, I can talk to her via Amazon Alexa show. But it's still difficult. So I can't imagine having to drive and still do all what you do and be an RN nurse, to others while you're going through everything that you're going through. That's definitely hard and heart tugging, if you will.
Well, one of the saving graces for that is my job now is in college health, so I work on a college campus, so there's no dementia or anything like that going on.
But
my patients are pretty much healthy. They're young and healthy.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone that just found out that their loved one was diagnosed with dementia?
The most important thing is to learn. People are not prepared for this disease and all of its ramifications. And it can go on for years, and it affects every single aspect of your life. And there are a lot of resources out there. So, for instance, Alzauthors, we focus on books and blogs primarily at this time. So what we do is we vet the books. We review them, and we, investigate the author, and we ask them to write the story behind this story. And on the website, you'll be able to find people who have written about their own experience categorized in different ways. For instance, caring for a spouse, caring for a parent, living with Alzheimer's. There's memoir, children's books, young adult fiction, a lot of different types of resources. So that would be a good starting point to, try to find some of these books, the ones that will speak to your particular story, and start reading and learning. Call the Alzheimer's Association, ask them to do an evaluation to give you some kind of, support that you can figure out what you're going to do. Because I have worked with families, and particularly relatives, who have no knowledge of Alzheimer's disease and don't think that they need to learn anything. And struggle, and they make it difficult for their loved one too, because they don't understand that there are different types of techniques that you can use to make the situations work. That you need to enter into their world. They are not going to come into your world anymore. So you need to learn how to talk to them and support them in their own world, and to try to keep things stress-free. So, for instance, if a person, you don't ask them, do you remember this all the time? Do you remember me? No, they don't. So when you say that, it just causes stress for them, and then they get upset. Or people can pick up on your mood. So if you're in a stressed mood, or you're angry or frustrated, they're going to pick up on that, and then that's going to affect their mood. Now you have an escalating situation that wasn't necessary. So there are definitely skills to be learned, and just to understand what this disease process is like and how it changes people and the different stages. There are different stages, and people enter them in a different time frame. Sometimes people can flip back and forth from one to the other. And you would do yourself a big service to try to understand what is actually happening with this brain disease, because it is a disease, and the person can't help it, and we don't have anything that can help it. We don't have any medicines or surgery or anything like that that's going to make it better. It doesn't get better. So
talk to each other.
You need to change your outlook.
And educate yourself. Educate
yourself every day. Do something.
Yeah.
Do something. A lot of caregivers I know don't have time to read. Maybe you have time to listen to an audio book. Many of
Correct.
the books in our library are on audio.
Yeah.
Or you could listen to a podcast like this. And there are others as well where people tell their stories, where you can listen to knowledgeable experts who have good advice. And even if you just spend 5-10 minutes a day, you will at least come away with something that might be useful to help you get through the next hour.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The first year and a half, it was a handful of friends that had experienced it, were going through it at the same time that I got my education from, whether it's going to support groups with them or, meeting, having coffee, or just calling them, what did you do in this case? And it's still overwhelming, but, it was enough for me to get a few things done almost immediately, like power of attorney, medical, and all those things early on instead of later, because that I know would have been really hard if I had waited.
Oh, yeah.
And then just getting her house set up electronically with a camera where I could see her and I can talk to her, and then just trying my best to find somebody. It took almost 6 years. It's been a year since we've had this woman that she gets along with well. And I call her running buddy because she loves to run around with her, and she's just the interaction with her. So yeah, getting educated, however you can get educated, is important for sure.
Yes. And I always tell people the second step after your doctor confirms that dementia diagnosis, the next step is to get to your attorney's office and start that paperwork.
Yeah, absolutely.
That needs to be done right away, because once the person is, determined to no longer be competent, then they can't sign those papers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're going to need that. You're going to need to be able to get into their bank account, to be able to, manage their money. I had to do all that for my parents. It was very difficult. Luckily, I had the power of attorney and all that business, but the whole process of it and the way that they had their situation set up, they had 2 different banks. I ended up with like 8 different accounts, trying to merge them all together, put them all in one place, and from 250 miles away. You know how banks are. You have to go there. You have to sign the papers. And so it took a long time.
Yeah.
But I finally managed to at least get that, and we set a lot of her bills up on auto pay.
Yes.
And at first she was very resistant because she still wanted to maintain control over her money. But she trusted me, so that was a good thing. And we allowed her to keep a portion of her income for herself to manage on her own. Yeah. So she was happy with that, but she liked having her bills paid automatically all the time.
Yeah, my mom
she
too.
Was she's in and out of the hospital, so I couldn't be trying to allow her to manage writing checks and things like that if she was incapacitated. So it was good.
Yeah, you're exactly right. If
they're deemed to be incompetent at a point, when the dementia is, they're not allowed to make decisions.
Yeah,
and now you are stuck.
So I definitely got that. That was the first thing that I did.
Yeah.
And she was very fine with it. Now she's not so much. She likes the bills being paid, but she doesn't like me telling her spending stuff. So she has her own little debit card that only has enough money that I put in as she needs it. So we worked it out. So it definitely was
what we did.
Yeah, you got to figure it out as you go. I know there's so many things when I ask this question, but I say, what's one thing you want people to know about, dementia?
It's not the end of the world. There's a lot of doom and gloom that surrounds dementia diagnosis, but people are still able to function and they can enjoy life, and you can enjoy them. So you should never just automatically assume that that's over. Every day you can continue to have a good relationship and to make memories together. They'll be your memories.
Yeah.
And it's important, not to get them despondent as well.
Yeah.
And to find activities that they can enjoy. Sometimes, they might not enjoy or be able to do the things that they used to do, but they can still learn new things and enjoy new experiences.
Yeah. Even if it's only for that day.
Only for that day. But I know a lot of people who are able to do that. There are a lot of people who are caregiving that are on Twitter tweeting about their experience.
Okay.
And I follow them, and every day I see them doing a different thing, whether they, take a walk to the garden. I know one couple, she brings her husband to the zoo every day. He loves the zoo. So every day they go to the zoo.
Yeah.
And it gets them out of the house. They have exercise. And he has a great day.
Yeah.
So little things like that, and it doesn't cost any money.
Yeah.
So that's another good thing. So
Yeah.
there's plenty of things in your community that you can do that they might enjoy.
Yeah.
And
Senior centers. There's more and more senior centers now that I just found the one for my mom in El Paso. So I'm excited about that. And
yeah, and they have memory cafes now where you can go and sit, and people with dementia can meet other people with dementia and they can talk.
wow.
They can share their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the caregivers can attend, or they can, drop them off and come back in an hour or two.
Yeah. I'm going to have to
Pick
look
them up.
that up in El Paso, Texas.
Yeah, the Alzheimer's Association, I think, sponsors some of those, but a lot of places do. Churches,
Yeah.
I think some churches might have that. Sometimes you got to dig deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of things aren't really advertised as well, so you really have to dig deep.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it's very important to talk about your experience.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a lot of stigma associated with Alzheimer's dementia, and sometimes people don't want other people to know. They're ashamed or embarrassed because in our culture, the idea of losing your mind is something that's considered shameful.
Yeah.
But there is no shame because this is a disease and you can't help it.
Yeah.
So the best thing is to talk about it. And I know people that, a friend of mine, one of my partners in Alzauthors, her parents, the day they were both told on the same day that they had Alzheimer's. That was the last time that word was ever spoken in their presence.
Wow.
They would not discuss it, and they didn't want anyone to know. And it placed a huge burden on their daughter because she was bound to their wishes. She was not able to share with others what was going on. She was very reticent to do that, and she, had a couple of people that she could confide in, but it was very difficult for her.
Yeah.
And it's not really helpful.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, even when you're out, if you're out in social settings, sometimes I know people that have like little business cards that would say, my wife has dementia, or maybe, please be patient or something. When something's not going right, you could always hand that to the person, the sales clerk or the waitress or whoever, so that they have an understanding of what's going on here, that the person's not just being difficult or whatever. They're not drunk, they're not being a jerk.
Yeah.
So people don't always understand what's happening. And people should go out. You need to go out and take your personality about life. It's not, they shouldn't be confined to the home and hidden.
Yeah, I agree.
That's not good.
Yeah, absolutely not. It makes it worse. There's no
Exactly,
interaction.
and it isolates the caregiver.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. They get caregiving. I learned the quote, caregiving can kill the caregiver if they don't practice self-care. So getting outside is important of the home.
And then what happens to your person?
Yeah.
If you're there.
Exactly.
One of the things I wanted to mention is that I went on the dementia cruise back in April.
There's a dementia cruise?
Caribbean. Yes, there is. It was in April. It's called the Building Bridges of Hope and Connecting Circles of Care Cruise for Dementia Caregivers. It was the first time that we went on, that this particular cruise went out. And it was a conference on the cruise. So we had several speakers there. I was one of them. I talked about Alzauthors. And we had researchers. We had a documentarian who was in the middle of creating a film. She spoke. We had financial services expert who was there speaking on that. Another one of the Alzauthors was there as well. He had written a book of poetry. And the dementia caregiving expert was also there. I mean, we just had a very good slate of speakers. And there were several couples who came, all couples. And every day we would have a presentation in the morning, one or two, and then we would enjoy the ship or go on shore and have dinner in the evening together and socialize. It was a wonderful time. These people were in the early stages of their disease, so they were all pretty much on their own power. They could, walk, and they had pretty good stamina to keep up with what was going on. But it was something that if your loved one is still highly functioning, that you might want to consider taking this type of a trip. It's very safe. There's nowhere really for them to go. I mean, you can get lost in a ship, but people will find you. That actually happened to one of the gentlemen. She left him in the room to go to one of the sessions, and when she got back, he had left the room. So
Yeah.
she panicked, but she found him right away, and he was with members of the crew that had, happened upon him and figured out something wasn't right, and they took care of him until she came back. But everything is there for you on a cruise. If you've never been, it's a vacation where you get on and you don't have to do anything until you get off.
Wow. So I have to share this with you, Marianne. I am terrified of doing a cruise, and my mom and stepdad have always done cruises, and my boyfriend's very pro cruise. So maybe this is something I have to just suck it up and and go do for next year as a homage to my mom. Have her come along, because she loves to travel still, even though it's not the best for her if she's not with somebody. She keeps saying she can do it by herself, but I'm sure my stepdad would love it as long as he didn't have to do it all by himself, because it is very overwhelming. He's, 80 years old, so it might be something that I'm going to suck it up and go do.
Yes, you should. The next cruise is going to be March 1st.
Okay.
Next year.
I'm ready.
So,
writing it down.
Lisa Sciucco is the cruise and conference producer, so
Okay.
you can look her up on nursinghomeology.com.
Okay.
And find the information there.
Awesome.
And she's on Twitter too. Twitter and Facebook as well.
Okay.
Talking about the cruises. But we went to the Dominican Republic, Turks and Caicos, Key West, and then the Bahamas. To their Holland America was the cruise line. We went to their private island, and it was just wonderful. There's all kinds of entertainment. You can go to shows. You can go to the casino. They have games. They have bingo. They have trivia. They have happy hour. They have music, dancing.
All of it. Everything
you can imagine. So you can do all that, or you don't even have to. You can just sit out on the deck and enjoy the breeze and watch the ocean if that's what you want to do. They feed you incredibly well. You don't have to worry about your meals.
Yeah.
You don't have to do any housework. You just take care of yourself and get yourself to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And make great memories. So it's an opportunity for a family to do something, meaningful together and create memories, get some good pictures.
Absolutely.
Have a good time.
Yeah.
And enjoy their loved one.
Yes. Very important to enjoy them while you have them and continue to make the memories. I constantly take pictures when I'm home of whatever, and her and my nieces and my nephews and my brother and her mom, and put them up on the wall so she can see them and, reminisce about those times, even if she's not quite sure when, but because her long-term memory is much better. Of course, she has no short-term memory. So what's something that surprised you about being a caregiver?
What really surprised me is how well I was able to manage all the accounts, because I don't do that. My husband takes care of that business. So when I had to stop balancing a checkbook and moving monies around and dissolving accounts and stuff like that, I was pretty pleased with myself because I managed to do it. That was like overwhelming to me. But I did. I learned how to do all that stuff, and I took care of that. Yeah.
It's very important. It's something that a lot of us get tasked to do, whether we are good at it or not, or whether we want to do it or not. I'm the same way. And it was something my mom she was the manager of all the money. So I get my talents from her, not knowing that I had them. So it is.
Yeah, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because my brothers were, they were supportive of that choice, that I was the one that took it over.
Well, that's good.
Because it is a burden. It is a burden.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure it's somebody that's going to be trustworthy.
Yeah. 100%.
So, my whole focus for me was making sure that my mother's needs were met and that she was comfortable, and I didn't want her to suffer any kind of stress over money throughout whatever they were going on, because he was placed in a nursing home and they had to go on Medicaid, which was devastating for her. And I had to do that too. I had to go through the whole Medicaid process, which is a nightmare. So that's another thing people need to do, is you need to get the money situation straightened out, because they want to know everything. And my stepfather had assets that my mother didn't even know about. We found out about by accident, actually. So good for us.
Yeah.
But, I had no idea. And trying to collect stuff and organize it and put it all together. And then, they decline you, and then you have to make an appeal, and it goes on for months before you can finally get approval.
Yep.
It's not a very nice process to go through that.
Yeah. So I've heard. Hopefully I'll be prepared because I've definitely consolidated
Yeah,
things for her and sold off assets for her and,
yeah.
got the joy of going through that process. So,
So they do have community Medicaid.
mhm,
So that means that if you qualify for Medicaid and the person is still living at home, it'll provide for services in the home.
okay.
A lot of people don't know that.
Okay.
So, and then they have the spousal recusal. So the spouse, so that person doesn't become impoverished,
Mhm.
is able to separate themselves financially from the other person and maintain some of the asset, and the other person would still be allowed to get benefits.
It's
So that might be something to look into to find out the threshold. Like they let you own your home, one home,
mhm.
and you can have a car, and you can have like, I think it was like $120,000 in the bank
Mhm.
in asset,
And
and
that's
then
called what? The spousal what?
spousal recusal or something like that.
Okay.
So they have to say that, no, I'm not going to use my money to pay for my husband or my wife. So
Okay.
that sounds like a terrible thing. But at the same time, that person has to live too, like my
Yeah.
mother was in that situation. We didn't know how long she would live. We didn't expect her to pass away when she did.
Yeah.
She could have lived many, many years. And that was always one of my big worries is, what if I run out of money? What if
Yes.
I run out of money? What am I
Yes.
going to do? What am I going to do? And I would be able to sleep at night worrying about that.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Because we're living longer, and so hence, if you
yeah.
don't have a conversation about this, it's that is definitely something that will occur if you don't even have
Hmm.
just a small smidge of a plan or small smidge of a conversation, so
Yeah.
you can take care of your loved one.
One
So,
of the things my mom was very, adamant about was not selling her home, even though
mhm,
she didn't live there anymore. She was living with my brother.
mhm,
And I knew that she would go off back and forth. Okay, you can sell my house. Because I said, we need that money. I mean,
yeah,
you're not going to go home again. And if I need money to pay, we were paying over $2,000 a week for caregivers just so that my brother could go to work.
wow,
I said, if I run out of money, how am I going to do this for you? So she would say, okay, you can sell it. Oh, no, don't ever sell it. I don't want you to sell that. Don't you dare.
hmm,
So I was just, a year ago, I said, I got to do something about this. I can't hang on to this. It's costing us money every month just to keep
yeah,
this place.
mhm,
So I thought, well, let me put out some feelers and see if I can find someone. And I did. I found a real estate agent. He came and he looked it over and he said, I know somebody that wants to buy this.
wow,
What? Are you kidding me? I think it'd be on the market for months.
oh wow,
Nope. He called me back later that week with an offer.
that's awesome,
And then my mother actually passed away like a week later. So
wow,
I never told her I was selling
yeah,
the place. I don't know if anybody did. I told everybody, do not tell her I was selling the
yeah,
place, but I don't know if somebody did or not.
well,
But,
it,
I said, well, what am I, if I need that money, I
yeah,
can't be sitting on a house
yes, absolutely, and it
knowing,
is.
I have nobody take care of my mother.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good for you for making the executive tough decision in doing so, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
sometimes you do. You have to go against their wishes, but
yeah,
it was for her own good.
yeah, definitely.
And I
So,
had a buyer. I was not going to say no to that buyer.
yeah,
If I could still be sitting here a year later wondering when is somebody going to buy this place.
absolutely, because it can take that long. I went through that process, so good for you.
Yeah.
Um, how can folks get a hold of you if they have more questions, or where can they buy your books?
Okay, so they can visit my website. It's mariannesciucco.com
Mm-hmm.
or
Absolutely.
alzauthors.com. They want to
Okay.
check out that website, alzauthors.com. And I'm on Twitter and Facebook under my name.
Yes.
And LinkedIn, I'm there too. And
Okay.
my email is mariannesciucco@gmail.com. So
Okay.
you can drop me a line. My
Awesome.
books are on Amazon, so just look up Marianne Sciucco on Amazon. You'll see Blue
Yeah.
Hydrangeas. It's available in Kindle, paperback, and audio. And
Awesome.
I also had written a prequel to that story called Christmas at Blue Hydrangeas. And I have another novel. It's a young adult novel called Swim Season, which was inspired by my daughter's 11-year swim career,
Mm-hmm.
and several short stories.
Well, good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Marianne. I really
Well,
appreciate you
thanks for
joining me
having me.
today. Yes, I truly appreciate your time. And to the listeners, thank you for tuning in today. If you know somebody who could use Marianne's story, please share this podcast. And while you're there sharing, please rate the podcast on whatever you're listening to, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google, SoundCloud, YouTube, Alexa. And until next week, remember, sharing is caring. And to the caregivers listening, take care of yourself so you can continue to take care of others. And to those who have not had that tough conversation with your family member about the what if something happens and you can no longer care for yourself, then what? What do? Take it from me, the daughter with a mother with dementia, I wish I'd had that tough conversation with her, because tomorrow is promised to no one. Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you.